11 years old as well. So he's not our oldest cat on site, but he's in double figures now, so he's doing really, really well. If you want, we can walk down the fence line. So Wayne was actually born into the Great British Circus, but after a time, our opinion on having animals like lions and tigers in circuses changed quite drastically. We've actually now passed law banning it in this country in January of last year. So now it's illegal to have lions and tigers in British travelling circuses now. But in other countries, they will have different legislation and think very differently about it. So Kasanga actually transferred over to a circus in the Netherlands when he was a few months old. But at 18 months old, when he hit sexual maturity, he was deemed untrainable by the ringmaster of the circus, basically just wouldn't perform the tricks the ringmaster wanted him to. So then we found out about him and teamed up with Woburn Safari Park and brought him back over here. Initially, though, he didn't come to our site. Initially, he went over to Woburn, because even though there isn't a breeding programme for African lions, currently the population stands at about 20,000 individuals. Woburn wanted to have cubs on their site, and they decided that Kasanga was a really good fit for that. However, being a circus cat, Kasanga had never interacted with another lion a day in his life. Rather than being a very big, dominant cat you'd want at the head of your pride, Kasanga was kind of a couch potato husband, really. Whereas the girls at Woburn, very dominant, very independent ladies, didn't really want a head of their pride, did not know what he was doing. So because of that, he didn't actually live with the girls at Woburn. He had his own little bachelor pad on site. The girls came to him for breeding and then went back again. But Kasanga did his job. He fathered a couple of cubs, which was fantastic. Aww. But over the course of his stay there, the girls he mated with started to get older and passed away. Kasanga's and left with cats very closely related to him. So if they had wanted to breed again with Kasanga, it would have been out of the question. So because of that, he then came back over to our site here. He's been with us nearly 5 years now. Being next door to a very dominant boy has made Kasanga kind of realise that to be taken seriously, he kind of has to compete in this unit a little bit now. So when the boy next door is up, territorially pacing, Kasanga gets up, clocks it, does exactly the same thing, which is what he's doing right here. When the boy next door roars, Kasanga roars in here. Their roar travels for about 5 miles, so he hears competition all the way around site. And when the boy next door is spraying, Kasanga sprays too. Let the boy next door know he is now a cat to contend with. He's got much more testosterone going through his body.
Oh yeah, see him up there.
Yeah, and as a result...
That's tiny, I think.
That is tiny, yes. And so by comparison, Kasanga now has a very dark mane. At the end, it's always dark brown. The darker the mane of a lion, the more dominant the lion is. So by having a dark mane, Kasanga's basically saying he is now a dominant cat. And because of that, hopefully in the future, he might be able to have a couple of lionesses in here with him. But for right now, Kasanga's very happy being a bachelor, and that's absolutely fine with us as well. We refer to as our Disney lion. He's basically picture perfect, that iconic lion look about him. He's a very handsome boy, like Mufasa and Brunassan kind of rolled into one cat, really. So he's a very handsome chap, for sure. Isn't that right, buddy boy? Right, we'll leave him to it. We'll head round the corner, obviously being called Tiny. He was originally called that because Tiny was the runt litter when he was born, but he now weighs about 180 kilos. Not exactly tiny anymore, but he is still our smallest male lion on site. So he was born at Woburn Safari Park, partial litter of 4. So he had 2 brothers and sister born there with him. When the cubs were only a few days old, their mum was actually diagnosed with mastitis, a type of milk infection.
Oh, yeah.
So it meant she wasn't able to produce enough milk to feed the 4 cubs that she had. So we decided instead that rather than keeping all 4 cubs in that situation, the female would stay with mum at Woburn, and all 3 boys came over to our sister site, Paradise Wildlife Park in Hertfordshire. They were partially hand-reared until they were 18 months old, and then all 3 boys came over to our site here. Being that Tiny is now 17 years old, he's one of our longest animals we've had here, and he's been a really great ambassador for his species.
Wow.
Sadly, he is also the last brother standing of the 3 that we've had here. Manzi, his middle brother, went across to our White Lion Pride, who we'll meet later on, but he passed early last year. And Kafara, who Tiny lived in the enclosure with as part of a coalition or bachelor group, he passed early this year. Aww. So with male lions, they typically do sometimes live in these coalition bachelor groups. People picture lions and prides, really, with a male at the head with a few lionesses and cubs running around. But when male lions get kicked out of the pride by their dad at 18 months, 2 years old, they either have to fend for themselves or join into another pride, both of which are fairly difficult tasks. So by being able to go around with your brothers, you've still got a safety in numbers, someone's still watching your back for you, and therefore it's really, really beneficial for them to do that. So this is exactly what Tiny and Kafara had here. We're monitoring Tiny every day, and honestly, he just seems to be taking things in his stride. He's a happy, healthy cat still, and hopefully that will mean we'll have him around for a little bit longer as well.
He's beautiful.
Our white tiger, his name is Cal, he is 10, and next door we have our Amma tiger, Amasia, and she is 8 years old. So for Cal here, he was born at a zoo in France, and then he went over to Paradise, our sister park, but the Cal's now found a permanent home here with us, and we're very, very happy to have him because he is basically a big, lovable goofball with a really great personality. The personality of a Labrador, really, to be honest with you. He loves any toys that we give him to play with, and he even tries to take his Richmond to bed with him as well, which is very, very cute. Not so fun for us when we have to try and dig a big barrel out of his bedding in a couple of days when we do clean him, but it's always fun to be able to give him a shot with it, for sure. So, do you know much about white tigers out of interest?
Not really.
We've only ever seen them once.
They're quite rare, aren't they?
Yes. This is actually
I know
just...
all tigers are rare.
Yeah,
but
so some people picture white tigers as a snow tiger because they are white all over. They think it camouflage very well being that colour. It's actually not the case at all. This is just a mutation within the Bengal tiger subspecies, tiger from India. Something called leucism. So he is a leucistic, or more commonly known as a white tiger. Essentially, he is underproducing the pigment that would make him orange and white. That's why he's just white all over. He has brown rather than black stripes and blue rather than green eyes. So he's a very striking individual, but in an Indian rainforest, everything is going to see him coming, including his prey. He can't camouflage. Mum would see him as a threat to her and the rest of her cubs and would either abandon or kill that cub as a result. This is probably partially the reason why we haven't seen this coloration since the 1950s in the wild, but it's also probably because it's extremely rare as well. We only see this colour in about 1 in 10,000 in the wild. Because there are 4,000 tigers in the wild globally now, and only 2,000 of those are Bengal, statistically, you're probably never going to see this mutation in the wild again. The only reason we know that it exists at all is because in the 1950s, poachers went into an Indian rainforest and completely coincidentally found a white tiger cub. They knew it was very unique, and therefore knew they could make quite a bit of money off of this cat. They brought him into captivity, bred him with sisters and daughters until a white cub was produced. He was then bred with that white cub. That is where every single white tiger now comes from one cat in the 1950s. Because of this, they can be born with very severe health issues. So that's why we will not be using Bikal as a breeding cat here. He is just here to be educational now and teach what he actually is, which is a Bengal tiger with slightly different genetic makeup. We're very lucky that the only issues Bikal has is a couple of chipped teeth, but it could have been a lot worse. So that's why he will not be a breeding cat for us here. But he's still a very handsome boy.
Seemed drooling.
Yeah, he's a very handsome boy. He's waiting for his main meal. That's coming at some point today.
If they have breakfast yet.
Yeah, he's waiting for his main meal of the day, so he's just sat there patiently
He's
waiting.
hungry today.
Whenever he sees a wheelbarrow go past, he gets up and he follows the wheelbarrow. Not really found out the whole of Siberia anymore. They're now mostly found in the Amur Valley in Russia, hence the name changed to Amur tiger. So Amasia typically should be our biggest cat tiger on site, as she is part of the biggest subspecies of tiger, but Bikal is actually our biggest tiger on site, weighing about 160 kilograms.
Wow.
Amasia here is about 145 by comparison. Whereas Bikal is also not a breeding cat, Amasia could be one in the future at some point. She was actually born on site as part of the Amur tiger breeding program. So every cat that's eligible for breeding is part of something called the European Endangered Species Breeding Program. Every cat is part of a stud book, and each year that stud book gets overlooked by a stud book keeper. They make recommendations on all the cats in zoos across Europe. Hopefully those cats like each other enough to come together and breed and have young. Amasia's parents had Amasia and her 2 sisters born here. When her sisters were 18 months, 2 years old, they actually went over to our sister site, Paradise Wildlife Park. Amasia was going to go over there and join them. They were supposed to be a group of 3. But Amasia likes our sanctuary a bit better, likes the peace and the quiet a bit more. So she's now going to stay here with us instead. Being that she's now 8, she could be a really good fit for breeding in the future. She's a really good age for that. But she just hasn't found her Mr. Right, and we're absolutely fine to keep her as a single lady as she wants to be. Whichever male gets paired with her as well, good luck to him, because she's a firecracker who's got his work cut out, to be honest with you. She's a proper little feisty madam. The cow would love to be best friends with her, and she's having absolutely none of it, does not want to be friends with him. With Amur tigers, they come from Russia. So it means it's a very cold environment with lots of small rocks and trees rather than dense rainforest foliage. This is why her white is really pronounced on her body, and in the winter she's got much longer fur to help her deal with the cold in Russia. And her orange is also much lighter to help her camouflage with the smaller rocks and trees rather than the dense rainforest foliage as well. You'll see when we go see our Sumatran tigers later how much lighter she is in comparison to them.
She's very nice, isn't she?
She is. She's a good girl though. Feisty madam, but a good girl. We'll leave her to it. Really. The first thing that people most notice about Servals, how big their ears are.
Yes.
In comparison to their head and their body, they've got the biggest ears of any in the cat family.
Are those the ones that...
And we'll do the hand feeds with that.
Wow.
I'm getting to put face mask on for
Now
us.
she's going to be fed. Now you're going to get some food, don't you?
So if you did watch the documentary, so you'll be very
Yeah.
aware of this little lady. So in the documentary, you may remember that she broke her leg. That's why she had to kind of come over, because she couldn't then be reintegrated back in properly with her mother and brothers. The leg that she broke doesn't cause her any issues now. She's able to walk, run, sprint on that leg now. And you might be able to tell by the purring, she really likes people now as well. In the documentary, you might remember we had to sit in rooms with her, put food down, let her come to us, and she was quite an angry ball of fur. But now she loves people and is purring like a motor engine every time we come and bring new friends to meet her. The way that we classify our big cats and small cats on site is by the vocalizations that they make. So big cats, they can roar but not purr. Small cats can purr but not roar. That's why your big cats are your lions, tigers, jaguars, leopards and snow leopards. Anything from a cheetah downwards to size is actually classed as a small cat. And legally, like I said, we can work in with all of our small cats, but choose it on a cat by cat basis basically. With Willow being a cheetah and being a hand rear, we work a little bit differently with her. We've got her dad Barami on site. That's actually why Willow came to be with us here, because we were always going to get one of the kittens. It was just decided for us that it was actually going to be Willow here. We'll see Barami hopefully a little bit later on. So when we feed Barami, we'll throw his food over the fence to him. He gets fed every single day. He gets about 3 kilograms of food every day, and he doesn't get the fatty horse meat we give to our big cats. He gets the finer things like the venison and the rabbit and the chicken instead. Exactly the same as Willow here. But when we go see Barami, you'll see how low his fence line is. We'll throw his food over to him. He'll then go over to his meal. We'll then do the cleans, work around him, and then we'll leave him to it. With Willow, though, being that she is a hand-reared cat, it's a little bit different with her. When we go in the enclosure to put her food in, we'll shut her in her den for that. Because when we go in the enclosure with her, it's for specific playtime sessions. We don't want her getting those two mixed up.
No.
So when we go in the enclosure with her, we'll take toys and a string. She's able to run around, chase after us. And she loves a bit of a fuss, a bit of a cuddle as well. It's all done on Willow's terms, though.
Are you as keepers, can you do that with her? Cuddle her?
So we actually went in here with her yesterday after work, which was really, really nice to see. And she came over, wanted to have a cuddle. But we all know there is something called a Willow look. If we get that look, we have to back away and leave her to it, because we know that she's done having that socialisation. If one day she wakes up and we try and go with her and she doesn't want us to, we'll stop doing it and we'll leave her to it. But normally every time we go and see her, she's right up at the gate waiting for us to come and say hi. So it's really nice we can still have that little level of contact with her, because with Maya, we simply can't do that with her now because of how big and strong she is. We're hoping in the future that Willow is going to become our breeding female for us. And if the way that she is with her dolly is any indication, she's going to be a fantastic mum in the future, which is going to be really, really nice for us. With cheetahs, they're not built big and strong like a lion or built to climb a tree like a leopard. They're built to be very, very fast. Every adaptation on a cheetah is geared up to make sure they can go very, very quickly. So with Willow here, she's long and slender and agile, built like the greyhound of the cat family, really. You might be able to see on her feet, her claws are also stuck out, but they are blunt claws. So this is because cheetahs have non-retractable claws. Their foot looks more like a dog's paw than a cat's paw, really. This actually helps them to grip into the ground, stay upright while they're running, rather than using their claws to huck into their prey to bring it down. They actually have a dew claw about halfway up their leg for that they use to hook into their prey to bring it down, or use to trip their prey up. The rest of their claws are all blunt to help them grip into the floor. The long tail you can see on Willow there is not used to help her climb. Cheetahs are terrible climbers. Willow learned that the hard way by climbing 10 foot and falling.
Oh my goodness.
So her tail is used like a rudder. She can twitch that tail and turn 90 degrees to catch an animal zigzagging across a field. Inside her body, Willow has an enlarged heart, enlarged liver and enlarged lungs. And she's got a very wide chest cavity and very big nostrils as well, taking more air while she's running. Cheetahs can go from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds and accelerate speeds of 70 miles an hour. But they can only really hold that speed for a 30-second maximum. If they push themselves too far, this will result in severe organ failure.
Sounds like a normal cat.
Yeah, and possibly even a heart attack. So on documentaries, when you watch cheetahs running full pelt after their prey, nearly catching it and suddenly stopping and the animal running off, that's exactly the reason why they do that. They can feel their organs shutting down within their body and they have to stop. But to combat this, if their prey is going at 50 miles an hour, the cheetah will go at 52 to catch it but not overexert themselves. But if their prey animal can outrun them for 30 seconds, unfortunately they are going hungry that day. Because they are this much more slender build, they're much more of a flight than a fight animal. Rather than sticking around and defending what they have against a lion or a leopard, as well as hyena or baboons as well, they will take themselves away from that negative situation. This is why they lose out on territory to those animals, but it's also why their young die quite prematurely as a result. Only 1 in 10 cheetahs survives into adulthood in the wild. So because of that, to combat this, cheetahs typically have quite large litters. Willow only had 2 brothers born with her. It's actually quite small for a cheetah. Her dad Barami was a litter of 8, but the highest recorded cheetah is one of 14 individuals. It's a lot for mums to look after. But basically it means that a couple of your cubs will hopefully then survive into adulthood out there in the wild. This all adds up for cheetahs. And they are now your most threatened cat out there in Africa. You're looking at a population between 4,000 and 7,000, whereas with African lions you're looking at a population of 20,000. So it is quite a big difference between the two. You'll see around Willow's eyes as well the beautiful black teardrop shape. That tells us cheetahs are a diurnal hunter, hunting mid-morning and mid-afternoon. The black teardrops act like sunglasses do for us to absorb light away from their eyes. So even when the morning sun is glaring down on her, Willow will still be able to see to hunt properly. So it's actually quite a beneficial adaptation for her to have.
She can hear something, can't
Even
she?
enough.
So she's obviously heard something happening over
If you want to head down this way, it can be something as simple they found as providing farmers with Alatonian shepherd dogs. These are very, very big, intimidating looking dogs, but they're a gentle giant. Not going to hurt the livestock animal, but definitely going to make the cheetah think twice about going anywhere near that livestock field.
Yeah,
And therefore it's going to be much more beneficial for them in the long run. All right, madam. They've also, the Cheetah Conservation Fund, opened up a cheetah cub rehabilitation unit in Somaliland. They now take in cheetah cubs that have been confiscated by humans who were going to sell them into the pet trade. They can then be rehabilitated and hopefully sent back out into the wild to be a wild animal again.
That is
Yeah,
amazing.
fantastic. The fact that Willow's an ambassador for that is wonderful, and hopefully she'll be able to continue the legacy by becoming a mum herself as well. Yeah, the purr on her or something else, really.
Isn't it?
I just thought she still has her baby fluff on the back of her neck.
Yeah,
She
doesn't
still
she?
looks like a youngster.
So how old is she now?
She's going to be 4 at the beginning of July,
Wow.
but her mum didn't lose her baby fluff till she was about 6, so potentially Willow
okay.
might have it for a little bit longer.
That's quite sweet, isn't it?
Right, we'll get down to the fun bit now that Willow enjoys, the hand
okay.
feeds. So I'll show you what you guys will be doing, and then we'll go and do the hand feeds.
And she knows, doesn't she?
Oh yeah, she does. So if you guys want to come and stand on the tarmac section over here with me,
Okay.
you each have 2 chicken drumsticks each, 1 for Maya, 1 for Willow.
Okay.
They're like food with a handle, so they're really, really useful for us. I've got gloves for you two as well. If you can wear a glove the entire time you're doing the hand feed,
Probably
then when you're done,
better.
I can take it right back off you again. We want to make sure that we're being nice and COVID safe. So after the glove goes on your hand, we want to make sure the only thing you're then touching with it is the chicken I'll be passing you.
Okay.
So sorting out everything else, hair, phone, camera, whatever that may be, I'll then pass you the glove, I'll then give you the drumstick, you'll then do the hand feed, then I can take the glove right back off you again. So, I'll get you to hold your hands out flat, I'll then place the drumstick in. If you can
Okay.
hold it with your thumb and make a fist around like this.
Okay.
If it's a little comfy for you, you can have your thumb on top of your fingers,
Okay.
just so that your thumb is not up here.
No.
And that's a bit going through the fence, so make sure you come back with it when we're done with this.
Yeah.
We're standing sideways onto the fence in this body position. Your
Okay.
back will be towards me. I'll
Okay.
be right behind you at all times, and we'll both be wearing face masks as we can't distance from each other or the cat when we're doing
Okay.
this. With Willow, we have to feed her down low. Basically, keep your arm in that kind of position and then pass it through the fence to her. We want to make sure that all 4 of her paws are firmly planted on the ground when we pass it through. But with Maya, you can raise her up on her back legs for the feed. So if you want to, tuck your elbow in and do a bicep curl.
Okay.
Making sure your arm and wrist are pointing towards you and the chicken's then pointing at the fence. Maya will then come up and show you where it's comfy, so don't try and overextend her. Go to where she shows you her back legs are firmly planted on the ground, so where she's comfy, and you'll find a really good spot to pass it through.
Okay.
When you and the cat are both comfy, I will give you the go ahead, then basically pass it on through the fence.
Okay.
It only needs to be about an inch or so. The cat's then going to take it off you.
Yeah.
When you feel them take it off you, let
Let
them
go.
take it. Please don't play tug of war because you won't win at the end of the day, basically. When you're done, little step back away as well. Some of our cats can get paws and claws through the fence, just extra health and
Okay.
safety for you.
Okay.
If the chicken falls on the floor at any point,
Leave
it's
it.
completely fine. Again, take a step back, I will pick it up when it's safe to do so. Please don't try and
Okay.
go for it yourselves.
Okay.
We'll then start the whole process over again. We also want to make sure your eyes are permanently on your hand with the chicken in it rather than smiling for a camera, because we want to
Okay.
make sure that you know where your hand is in relation to the cat at all times.
Okay.
And probably fairly self-explanatory, but when they are this close, please don't try and touch our cats.
No, no.
It's good
no.
for you guys?
Yeah, fine.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Who would like to go first?
You go
Shall I
first,
go
I'll,
first?
I'll get some pictures of you.
Okay, are you right or left-handed?
I'm left-handed.
Perfect.
To be
All right.
awkward.
That's fine. So for photos, if you want to stand on the wood chip section, if you want to sit with me on the tarmac, I'll pass you a glove.
Pop that one.
I know you're waiting for it. It's very exciting. It's like Willow's favourite thing ever.
Happy. She's so happy to do it.
Hello.
Okay, got my glove on.
Perfect. So if you want to come and stand close towards me, and then hold your hand out flat, hold it with your thumb, make a fist around it. Perfect. Keep your hand in that position for us. Turn your body sideways so your back's towards me. Walk your body to where my arm is, just here. And then turn your hand in that time position. Get a little bit closer for us. And when you're ready, pass on 3 to her. Good
Wow.
girl. Little step back for us. Wonderful.
Oh, that's quite gentle.
She is quite gentle.
That was
Then she
good.
inhales it in about 2 bites, which disappears.
That was so gentle.
I can set your glove off you as well. Yeah, she's quite a good girl, to be honest with you.
She's done it loads of times, I can tell.
Oh, yeah, she has, for sure. Hi. Right, if you guys want to do a swap,
Right, what do you want? Do you want me to film?
Yeah, yeah.
are you
It's still
right or
fun.
left-handed?
Right-handed.
So
you want a
we'll do a
picture?
swap then. So for photos, if you want to stand on the opposite side of the wood chip, and then if you want to come closer towards me, I'll give you a glove.
Oh my goodness, multitasking here.
Always fun.
Oh yes, look at her. She knows what's coming.
She does. She's very smart. Knows the drill.
Is this actually going?
It's filming, yeah.
Okay, so if you want to hold your hand out flat, hold it with your thumb, make a fist around it like that. Perfect. Keep your hand in that position for us. Turn your body sideways so your back's towards me, and then walk your body to where my arm is. Come a little bit closer. Keep on coming. And then turn your hand down low. Come a little bit closer for us. And when you're ready, pass on through. Good girl.
Oh, she's beautiful. Very gentle.
She's a good girl. I can take your glove off you as well.
There you go.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Wow.
She's happy now.
There you go, you just hand fed a cheetah.
Yeah, wow. First time, goodness.
Good girl. Thank you, madam. How was that for you guys?
Amazing.
Pretty
Yeah.
Right, if you guys want to grab your
Amazing.
stuff, we'll then lead.
Oh, she is small, isn't she? Oh, well, we had a glimpse.
There you go, you got quite a little glimpse of her. She's a very cute little
She's
girl.
beautiful.
Right, we'll head next door to this guy. Right, and there he is, walking down the back fence line there.
Oh, yeah.
There he comes. So this is Griffin. Griffin is our caracal.
Okay.
So you might be able to see on Griffin, he's got very similar adaptations to what the picture of Petra that you saw looked like.
Yeah.
So he's got the short tail as well. He also has those ear tufts and the white eyeliner around his eyes. So again with the short tail, means jumping up in the air to catch his food
Yeah.
too. The ear tufts, we believe those to be an extension of their whiskers on top of their head. They can therefore feel when their prey is passing over them, know the exact right time to jump, retrieve their food and bring it down. The white eyeliner tells us that Griffin is something called a crepuscular hunter. He hunts at dawn and dusk. The white eyeliner helps to absorb as much light as possible into his eye. So as it gets dark, Griffin can still see to be able to hunt properly. Lynx and caracals all have those same 3 adaptations. They all look similar,
Yeah.
but they're not related to each other in any way, shape or form. It's something called convergent evolution. Griffin's more closely related to our servals than he is to Petra. Challenging and difficult enrichment because he's got the brains and the brawn to carry it out. This is why he's got a feed pole. He's able to scale that feed pole, retrieve his food and bring it
Gone in
down.
this little bed.
Oh, he's
back out again.
He's also got a counterweight system at the back on the right hand side, which means that he's actually able to jump, retrieve his food, try and bring it down, but if he lets go it pings straight back up again, so if he wants to try and jump again to bring it down. We can hide it in his log pile or in a barrel, and there he is. Feel free to walk down this just a bit better. And that means that he's then able to work out quite challenging and difficult enrichment, so it means we can then challenge him quite a lot. But we also discovered quite quickly he's a bit of a grumpy old man of our site, really. Much preferring the company of himself to the company of others.
No.
So with Griffin, he's actually a small cat we don't work in the enclosure with.
No.
We'll shut him in as dead.
Yeah, he's sleeping up there, isn't he?
So he's been in
wow.
this unit since Koshi went off to Highland, so a
That's
few
beautiful.
months now. He had his second birthday when he was in this unit as well. So he's now learnt that he's got an entire bachelor paddle to himself, so he can choose to be wherever he wants and doesn't have to be kicked off by mum or dad, which he thinks is really, really great.
He looks beautiful.
So at some point he'll be heading off to a nice new home and hopefully be able to become a dad himself too, which would be fantastic.
Yeah.
You'll see with Kumbu's coloration, there's having a real fur on it. He also, above his eyes, has a chamber in his skull that juts out. In the Himalayan mountains, the air can get below -40 degrees. If you breathe that in, it's going to burn your lungs. So instead of that, snow leopards can breathe the air up into that chamber, warm it up, and then send it into their lungs. They're never ever breathing in very, very cold air, which is a really good adaptation for them.
Yeah.
You're looking at about 7,500 to 10,000 in the wild as a population number, but because they are so elusive, we don't have a more accurate Marching Tiger breeding program. So these two have had 4 cubs altogether, once in 2008 and again in 2011. So those 4 cubs have now gone off to different breeding programs, and as a result, Nias and Puna are now great grandparents, which is fantastic. You're looking at about 270 of them in zoo collections, and a zoo in Poland had a female cub born last year.
Wow.
So if we've got a retired pair here, it's still nice to know the breeding program is well.
She's beautiful.
She's a girl. And Mrs.
Oh, look, she
So is this the most
recognises.
endangered species?
No, that would be Amur leopard is your most endangered, but these guys still not doing great. There's about 500 of them out in the wild. They are your smallest of species though, so you can see how much smaller than a Major Puna is here. Whereas a Major weighs about 145 kilograms, Puna here weighs about 80, so she's much smaller.
She's gorgeous.
But she is a gorgeous little lady. She's one of our most food-orientated cats. If I brought the food bucket in here with me, she'd have been up at the fence, rubbing her face against it, talking to us, sticking her tongue out, because she wants to make sure she gets all the food possible, because she loves it so very, very much. Don't you, Madam? Yes. They're also now your island-dwelling species of tiger as well, coming from the Sumatra Island, Indonesia.
Wow.
They're surrounded by dense rainforest foliage in that area. So that is why Puna here is so much darker than the Major was, to have her camouflage with that very dense amount of foliage in the rainforest. So, like I said, they look about 500 of these cats. The biggest issue they face comes from palm oil plantations. You may have heard about the crop palm oil now. It's quite a common crop that we see in food cosmetics products all the way around the world. And because it's classed as quite a high yielding crop, it means that you may not have to use as much land to grow it. But we're still taking football pitches worth of land away from these cats to grow palm oil plantations, so it is still quite a big issue for these guys out there. So a few years ago, people were talking about boycotting it. It's a very nice suggestion in theory, but in practice it doesn't really work because you have to find an alternative to it. Rapeseed is probably the close alternative, but that takes 9 times more land to grow than palm oil does. So you're taking more land away from these animals, not less. So by doing that, it means that it's not really that worthwhile. So instead, just buying more sustainably seems like the right answer really. There's a new logo that's popping up that you might be able to find on your palm oil products now. It'll be a little palm leaf logo. It says RSPO underneath it. That stands for Round Table for Sustainability of Palm Oil. If you buy products with that logo, it means the palm oil in it has been farmed sustainably. The money you're paying actually then goes out to help cats like Nias and Puna, thousands of miles around the very tight island in Indonesia. Aldi, Morrison's and Sainsbury's are all really hot on their palm oil consumption now, and as a result, all of their own brand products now contain sustainable palm oil. So it means you can now buy cheaply and sustainably, which is fantastic really. Making that very small change to your weekly shop has a very big impact on these guys, so I come and say, why don't we all do it, because it's something we can easily now participate in.
Definitely.
Are you tired, Puna?
She's gorgeous.
It's tough being a tiger, in it. 2008 and again 2012. So she's had 4 cubs altogether. Those cubs have also now gone off, and as a result, Zizi is now also a great grandma, which is fantastic.
Doesn't look old enough.
I know, being 16, you couldn't tell. It's doubly wonderful for the Amur leopard because this is your most endangered of all your big cats out there in the wild. You're looking at a population now of about 100 individuals, but 15 years ago that population was only standing about 35 individuals. So because of this, the Russian government now intervened and created a safe area of land for these guys known as Land of the Leopard. So it's patrolled by 24-hour armed guards and it's all monitored by CCTV. So if you go in that area without a permit, you will be fined and prosecuted, and if you refuse to leave, you could potentially be shot too. Right, well, head down here, see if we can spot leucistic or white lions. they're also underproducing that pigment. So rather than being that golden tawny colour like Tiny and Kasanga, they're this bleach blonde colour all over instead. It's not as rare in white lions as it is in white tigers, but it's still not a naturally occurring mutation by any stretch. And white lions can survive in the wild, but only in one particular area of the world, known as the Timbavati region. This region is part of the Kruger National Park in South Africa, and white lions survive there because the area is covered in bleach blonde sand.
Wow.
If you're a white lion, you can survive very well in bleach blonde sand areas, but it's not going to be that way across the board. And so because of that, you might in the wild see an African lion pride with maybe one white lion attachment, but that's as far as it goes. The only reason we have a full pride of them here is because we bred white lion with white lion, and you're guaranteed to get white lion young when you do that. Because of this, now that we know more about the mutation, more research has been done, we now know they're not a separate subspecies, it's just a genetic mutation. And so because of that, we won't be breeding our white lions again, because again they can be born with health problems. So all our girls have been neutered, and then goes our males have been vasectomized, so it won't be any funny business. These guys are just here now again to be educational and teach what they are, which is African lions with slightly different genetic
Probably be up to
makeup.
here on me. if
They are
were-
very, very tall. We think
Yeah.
that the mutation affects their growth hormone. This is why the cow and the girls are so much bigger, and why Goes is actually our tallest male.
Oh,
Doesn't
right.
weigh as much as Kasanga, but height-wise he's taller than him. So that's where we think it kind of comes into play. You'll also see with Gosie's mane, very light in coloration rather than being any dark.
Yeah.
In the wild, he could be the most testosterone-filled male on the planet, but will never ever come through in a mane coloration. So because of that, it means that in the wild, white lion males never really heads of any pride, because they take one look at him and see him as being immature, having a fair bit of growing up to do.
Yeah.
We're hoping that we can maybe reintroduce Gosie and Amara back to the girls in the main paddock, but we haven't seen enough positive behaviour between the girls and
Right.
Amara
Okay.
to warrant it really. The issue would be if they all choose to gang up on her, that's 5 against 1, and Gosie therefore might decide it's better to protect the entire pride than just his favourites.
Yeah.
So Sophia here was actually Chester Zoo's breeding female. Hey Soph, once upon a time. Unfortunately, all the cubs that Sophia produced were actually stillborn, so it meant that we then said that we would definitely take Sophia on here if Chester wanted to get a different female to come on into them.
Yeah.
So when we got Sophia, we were told good luck and then left with her. So I can only imagine what she was like when she was at Chester. Being a Jaguar, she's very, very switched on as a cat, but she just is really playful. So we're able to provide her with enrichment that she is
I think
effectively
somebody
can
sees
destroy.
you over there with your bucket.
That's Maya. We're going to go end with her. So yeah, but she's the other cat we'll be hand feeding. She's kind of walking up and down the fence line over
Yeah.
there. But we'll go and see her later on. She's a very funny little character. With Sophia here, one time we gave her a Hessian set to play with that she likes to rip apart and destroy, and she threw it a little bit too aggressively onto her head and wore it like a hat, thinking she looked very, very fancy. Athena, her next door neighbour, our black Jaguar, thought she looked very, very silly, but it's always nice to see their personalities coming through a little bit. Because we have them in this unit, even though they do kind of get on between the fence line, what we do when we feed them is we feed one of them inside and one of them outside, and we alternate that on their feed days.
Okay.
So today, Sophia's being fed outside and Athena's
Yeah.
being fed inside.
Oh. She's looking.
She's like watching what the keepers are doing.
My turn.
You'll see on Sophia's body there, she's got the very big circles that we call rosettes, but in the middle of them, she's got little spots.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're trying to tell the difference between a Jaguar and a leopard, the only thing you have to go on is the pattern on their fur.
Oh, right.
Jaguars will have spots in the middle of their rosettes, and leopards never will.
Oh.
It's a good way of telling
That's a
if
good
you're just
way.
looking at their fur, if you're looking at a Jaguar or you're looking at a leopard.
Similar, aren't
They are, for sure. We can head over this.
Oh, like Willow.
Yeah, so Willow's got her baby fluff. Barami has something called a mantle. So with male cheetahs, this will develop, their baby fluff develops into a mantle.
Okay.
The bigger the mantle, more dominant the cheetah is. Basically, they're equivalent of a lion's mane, really.
Right. Okay.
So with tigers, they've got ruffs around the bottom of their face. So the bigger the
Yeah.
ruff, more dominant the tiger. With cheetahs, they've got that mantle.
I can kind of see. I think a
Yeah,
little bit.
when he gets up
maybe.
and walks, it's really visible. When he's lying down, it's less so.
Yeah.
Basically, because Barami's been with females previously, and because he's also been with his brothers, that would have only increased his testosterone level. So when Barami kind of came back from Wingham, a little bit boastful, hence why he was given that unit. So he's quite a dominant cat. He was basically fighting for dominance with his brother Martin,
I bet,
and
yeah.
so because of that, he was then given his own separate unit. Hence why the mantle is so big. You'll see around his eyes as well the black teardrop shape as well coming through too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Each cheetah has about 4,000 spots on their coat.
Wow.
Each pattern is as unique to them as our fingerprint is unique to us. So each cheetah looks ever
Goodness.
slightly different to one another as well, which is quite cool.
I can hear. Is that a like? Is that a? That's lions.
Yeah, I think so. That's one of our guys going. growling at our keepers probably. So, as you can see with Brahmi, not a cat that moves all that much, for being honest with you.
No,
Being
they
that-
like their
Exactly,
sleep, don't
yeah.
they, I
Being
think?
that he's an old man, he does like
True.
to sleep a little bit more. But yeah, definitely, cats are very energy efficient anyway, shall we say. We tried our boys once with a lure system, see if they would run for their food. As in the wild, they typically don't run for
yeah.
fun, they only really run to catch their food. They followed the lure system round once we put up that you get at greyhound racing, but they clocked very cleverly that it had to stop somewhere. They went over to where it stopped, waited for the food to come to them, and then pulled it down. Weren't
So they're
running for
very
love nor money.
intelligent. Yeah.
I'll let the train go past.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's waking you up, although.
Abby, you're a good boy.
It's like a domestic cat, and it like roll over, go back to sleep.
Yeah, he's a good boy. So basically, we now don't use lure systems because they don't really use it.
No, bit
Um,
pointless.
Exactly. With Willow, we actually used to put her meals on remote control cars, and she would then chase them around. But Barami here, he's not running for love nor money now. It's just not happening.
It's wised up to that one.
Yeah, he's a good boy though. We're thinking that this might become our cheetah breeding unit at some point. We might move Willow over. Boy. So this is Jack. Jack is our jungle cat. We're really lucky to have him here because he's one of only 3 jungle cats in collections in the UK.
Wow.
So not a lot of people have ever seen or heard
Never
about
seen
the
one
species
before.
So it's
No.
actually quite cool because there are 36 species of small cat. It's nice to be able to showcase off a few different
Definitely.
ones. Hey, buddy. A lot of people, when they look at Jack, ask if we just put a domestic cat in an enclosure.
He does.
Because he looks very similar to your domestics.
Yeah.
He's on that same genetic line and weighs about the same as a Maine Coon. So
Right.
between 11 and 13 kilograms overall, really.
Crazy, isn't it?
The reason that he's called Jack, doesn't have a more exotic name, is because he came to us from a zoo in Belgium on a frosty night. His full name is Jack Frost, for that reason. I don't know, however, who named the species jungle cat. It's really misleading as a name because it implies that they come from jungles, and they really don't come from jungles at all. They come from marshland, swampland, wetland and grassland areas throughout the Middle East and into
That's a
Egypt.
mystery then.
Exactly. He's also a cat that typically doesn't really meow. He barks more like a fox does, so he's quite different, quite unique. But he's definitely a cat member of the cat family for sure. You may have inadvertently seen a jungle cat before and not known about it. And because they come from Egypt, you may very well know that in Egypt they worship cats and wanted to have them as pets.
Yeah.
So when these people in Egypt wanted to have a pet, they actually domesticated the jungle cat and had them as a pet.
Wow.
When these people passed away, wanted to be buried with their pets. These cats are mummified
Yeah.
and placed in tombs with their owners.
Oh,
These
right.
tombs then exhumed, and you find mummified jungle cats in there. And occasionally they got put on display in museums. So you may very well go to a museum and see a mummified jungle cat in an Egyptian
Never
section.
realised
I
it
never
was.
realised. Yeah, he's a cool guy. The reason that he's one of my favourites is actually because I get to train him on site. If you're
Do
part of the
you?
education and keeping team, you get to train 1 or 2 of the cats.
So you've got a nice bond.
Yeah, we do. I think he's a very good boy. I've built him.
Can you go in there with him then?
Because he's a small cat, we can work in the enclosure with him. When we're doing training though, we do protected contact. So we
Okay.
always have the mesh between me and him.
Yeah.
We've got a crush here at the front of his
Oh,
enclosure.
yes.
So at the minute I'm trying to bring him into that. So get him
Okay.
to lie down so we can actually vaccinate train him.
Oh, bless.
So he can then bring his leg up to the fence.
Is it going well?
I mean, he doesn't like to sit still, so
No.
that's a little bit of a challenge. So basically, I'm trying to get him to feel the sensation of what it would be like to have a vaccination, and
Yeah.
hopefully we'll be able to vaccinate him without having to put him under sedation or
Yeah.
darting him, because it can be
That's
quite
it.
a stressful thing for him. If he's just sitting with me, having food passed through to him through positive reinforcement training, it's going to be much nicer for him.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping we'll be able to do that.
Distraction.
Exactly. I've tried to weigh him previously, but as you can see, he doesn't like to sit still very
No,
long. So
he
trying
is
to weigh
very-
him is a little bit of a challenge.
Very active, isn't
But
he?
he's a good boy. Yeah, he's one of my favourites.
He
for
is
sure.
very sweet.
He's a good boy.
You could easily mistake that for a domestic
You
cat
could.
if you were out and about,
For sure.
really.
Yeah,
couldn't
you really could. But no, definitely a wild animal for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Right, we'll head next door, go to the little lady who's perched up on her platform. Hey, Magus. How are you? Hi. So this is Yazzie. Yazzie is one of our 3 Puma girls that we have on our site here. She is 10 years old. She is also a cat who came to us from the private collection industry. So first one in Italy and then transferred over to one in Hertfordshire with her brother. When she came to Hertfordshire though, the private collector decided that having 2 Pumas was a little bit
Crazy.
too much for him to handle. So he decided that he would keep Yazzie's brother, and Yazzie went over to our site, Paradise, She was
Wow.
partially hand-reared until she was 2 and then came over to our site here. Being that she's now 10, we've had her for 8 years and she's a really good-natured little lady.
Imagine having that in your house.
Exactly. So, because she is a small cat, it means that rather than making your roaring sounds that you hear across site, she kind of squeaks and chirrups instead,
she?
which is quite cute, hearing quite a small sound coming out of quite a large animal. But as you can also see, quite a big member of the small cat family,
Yeah, definitely.
and she weighs about the same as our female snow leopard Layla does. So because of that, we treat our pumas like a big cat here.
Yeah.
We don't work in the enclosure with
the
them.
paws, look at the paws.
Exactly, yeah. They can still do us a fair bit of damage.
Definitely.
So we shut them in when we're going out into their enclosure and doing anything. We also feed them 3 times a week on the same horse meat that we give to our big guys as well. So with Yazzie, because she is fed 3 times a week, we actually try and change her enrichment for her because she is a hand-reared cat every single day to give her that extra bit of stimulation that she likes. Her favourite thing in the entire world is a basketball. I don't know why. I think she likes to bat it and then it bounces off things.
That
She
must
can
be
run
an
and chase it.
image to watch.
Yeah, it's great when she then tries to, then she grabs it and then if we get too close to her enclosure she hisses and growls at us. It's great fun. I don't really think she realised she can pop it very easily with her claws, but it's fun if we've got one
Go
going
through a
spare
little
to be able to go
basketballs.
it to her for definite. She's a very, very good girl. Aren't you, Madam? You might know pumas by various different names. If you've ever heard of a cat called a cougar,
Yes.
or a mountain lion,
Yes,
Florida panther,
yes.
catamount screamer,
Oh, right.
they're all a puma.
Basically,
These
one of
cats
those.
actually have over 40 different names for one species, which is very, very confusing and crazy, yeah. So with these cats, the reason they have so many different names is because they are so widespread throughout America from north to south.
Yeah.
Different places have different names for them.
Oh, okay.
So this is why you could go to a zoo, seeing this cat being called a cougar, that'd be very, very normal.
So it's basically just a puma.
It is, yeah. The only reason we refer to it as a puma is because their Latin name is Puma concolor. There's no reason to suggest any of these are names are wrong at all. Just because different places have different names for them. They're actually in the Guinness Book of World Records because they have the most amount of names for one type of animal, which is very confusing. Hello, Miss Thing. We'll go and see the 2 next door, see if they're a little bit visible. So Yazzie and Puma were fed yesterday to sell their boxing day for them. We're going to chill out today. Let the food go down. I was wondering what you can say there for a minute. There's one of them, I wonder.
Oh,
And then there's the other one.
so that's got to be the female because she looks a bit smaller.
They're both females.
Oh, they're both.
Both females. So these are twin sisters.
Oh, wow.
So this is Victoria. The one who wandered past there was Valentina.
Okay.
The way that you can tell they're both females is actually by their faces.
Okay.
Females look very contoured in their face, like they've done their makeup.
Oh, okay.
Males have very big, broad teddy bear-like faces on them.
Get the
Hey
ears.
Val. So these 2 were born at a zoo in Austria. When we first got the 2 of them, we thought we might have to separate them, as in the wild they would be living fairly solitary lives. But because there's a hierarchy in place with the 2 of them, as long as that hierarchy is respected, we can have these 2 living together. Doesn't really pose us too much of an issue.
No.
Valentina is by far the more dominant of the 2. Victoria is very aware of that. So as long as Valentina gets what she wants first, we can have both girls living in together. Doesn't pose us too much of a problem, really. Feel free to go up to the windows if you want to try and spot them as well. Hello, madam. There's the 2 of them are. So their Latin name, Puma concolor, literally translates to cat of one colour. As you can see, links up very well with these guys, that beautiful browny beige all the way through. So if they're coming from a hotter area, it might be slightly lighter in their coat colouring. Coming from a colder area, it might be slightly darker. But overall, they're going to say they're beautiful browny beige.
Beautiful, aren't they?
When they're born, they're actually born with little spots on their coat, but they lose them as they get older, and they have a more plain colour all the way through instead.
You won't want that in your back garden, really, would you?
No, exactly. You'll see with their back legs here, they're raised much higher up than their front legs are. So with pumas, all their power comes from their back legs. With tigers, their front paws are bigger because all their power comes from their front legs. With pumas here, by using their back legs, they've been known to jump lengths of
So you can
double-decker
jump
buses to retrieve their meals. And that tail they have is full of muscle to be able to practically glue them to the side of a precarious rock face when they're running around chasing their food. It's actually really beneficial for them to be built in that way.
It's got like a little cow at the end of
They
their
do,
tails.
yeah, because their tail's a little bit longer and droopy on the floor. Hello, madam.
That's our girly Valentina.
So With these guys, every single cat has an information board about them. On every single information board will be that IUCN Red List rating. So these cats being a least concerned species on that means that in the wild they're doing fairly well.
Right.
You're looking at a population of about 50,000.
Okay.
And so because of that, there's no need for a breeding program for these guys. So these cats are typically here to just kind of showcase an underappreciated member of the cat family, really. Because a lot of people have heard about them but don't necessarily know what they look like, really. So it's nice to be able to showcase them off a little bit.
Yeah, you don't see them like in every seat, do you?
No.
Or anything.
Here you go. So this is Kamal and Kadira. Kamal's the one on the platform, Kadira is the one walking around on the floor there. Kamal's the male, Kadira's the female. These technically aren't our cats. Technically they're from our sister site, Paradise Wildlife Park in Hertfordshire. But they're here while they're enclosed under a little bit of refurbishment at the minute. And then when their new enclosure is all done, they'll be heading back to Paradise into a nice new home. Gorgeous. So, well, they're here, they're just having a bit of a holiday in the Kent countryside really, which is really, really nice for us because we can get to show them off a little bit, which is great. This is kind of your quintessential look for a Jaguar, especially with Kamal. He's got a very big stocky build on him. Jaguars are kind of like the pit bull of the cat family really, they are very stocky in their build. And they've also got very big heads as well to hold on to that muscular jawline they have. With leopards, they're much more slender, with much smaller heads as well, and much longer tails. Jaguars have shorter tails than the leopard does. But the best way, like I said, is being able to tell with the rosettes.
Yeah.
Kamal has really prominent spots in the middle of his rosettes. You can tell really easily on him that he is definitely a Jaguar for sure.
So this is, they've got all of that.
Yeah, there he is. He's moving here. So yeah, both these guys have got access to both the enclosure and the den inside. They can therefore choose to be together or choose to be separate. The only time we ever physically separate them, physically put a barrier between the two of them, is when we're actually feeding them. Yeah. So we know that food can cause squabbles with cats who live together, and so because of that, we want to make sure that there isn't any issue with them, and so we will separate them for their meals. Kadira knows that food is top priority, she's always off looking for our meal, whereas Kamal likes to kind of watch her, make sure she's got her food first, and then after she's finished eating, he'll go and look for his food. So they actually have a really, really nice relationship. Aww. These two are actually grandparents now. Wow. So our breeding female, Kira, the one who just had the cub, she's actually Kamal and Kadira's daughter.
Oh, okay.
So they're now grandparents on our site.
Beautiful markings. Look at those markings.
He's a very handsome boy. So it means we currently have 3-generation Jaguar on our site, which is really, really cool. With Kamal here, he's very beautiful, but hasn't got a lot going on upstairs, shall we say. All the brains lie firmly with Kadira.
Aww.
Kamal likes to stalk Kadira when he's playing with her, thinking that if he hides behind a post, she can't see him, which definitely can. And then he forgets there's a post in front of him and runs full pelt to get her and whacks into the post. The cats, do they mind the noise? Because the aerodrome's 5 minutes down the road, they're quite used to playing it over. It's the same with the track. Right, we can head on in through the gate. Let's have the gate. There's the gate. Hello, madam. Squeeze on in.
Put my bag down here.
That's fine.
Okay.
We'll see.
Don't trip over it.
There we go. Come over, you'll see her with the box there.
Oh, she's keeping an eye there. I really want the chicken not to go away. She loves it. She is one of the ones that loves it, isn't she? Look at you. What's all on your face? What else did you say is in the middle is? What's all that herby stuff?
Raspberry leaf.
Raspberry leaf? I've not heard of that.
It's a new one. She does, to be fair,
Yeah, she is going for it.
Yeah.
She's looking like it's catnip.
And then she's grabbing a paper as well, sells Oscar perfume and everything.
Oh, you can smell it, can't you?
Yeah. So what we do with our enrichment, we can either give them things like a box, or we can then fill the box with things. So we can put balls that make a nice sound, or we can fill it with tubes. Sometimes we just fill it with different smells or perfumes. So we've got loads of different perfumes, different spices that we're able to put onto enrichment to make it smell a little bit different. So they're probably not going to come across Copperbox in the wild, but if we're going to put it with some different smells as well, it makes it quite an interesting thing. And then seeing how they interact, we then find out if some of the cats really like the smells and some of them don't. So with the Cal, our big white tiger, he loves the piece of barrel, takes it to bed with him, sleeps with it. And Zizi, our Amur leopard, really likes the smell of Marmite. So then we're able to integrate that in, and it means that she's then able to interact with the enrichment that has Marmite on it because she really likes it. So it's really great for us to see with that. With Maya, her favourite thing is definitely a Copperbox. As you can see, destroy it. So she basically takes the whole thing apart and then goes and looks inside. We've done towers of Copperboxes, so we've kind of done like a big box at the bottom, going up medium and small.
Wow.
And she's literally just launched the tower, knocked all 3 of them down and ripped them apart. So it's wonderful fun. It's great fun. We have to kind of pick up all the pieces of the box again when we go and clean her out. But yeah, no, she loves it and really enjoys it.
She looks very smooth. Her fur is like soft.
Yeah. No, she is for sure. She's a really good girl.
Jumps it with all 4 arms out.
Well, I looked after her anyway. See that.
She's covered in like the smells.
I am. I'm going to eat it.
That's what I mean. Everything has to go in the mouth.
It's obviously safe for her to eat.
With the cow, our white tiger, and with our white lions, it's something called melanism. So Maya here is a melanistic, or more commonly known as a black jaguar.
Yeah, she's beautiful.
So whereas the white tiger and white lions are underproducing pigment, Maya here is overproducing it. So it means that rather than being golden all over, she's black all over instead. She does still have the rosettes on her body that jaguars have. They're on her skin rather than on her fur. So if you shaved her a little bit, that pattern will still be coming nicely through on her body. You might be able to see it on her back end there.
Definitely can.
Hello, madam. Hi. What's that?
Oh, you didn't see that one there?
About 10% of wild jaguars will be the same colour that Maya is here. Because she comes from Central and South American rainforest, she can camouflage very well in those areas. And therefore she looks like a shadow when she's hunting. And therefore still has plenty of food and breeding opportunities open to her out there in the wild. It's also a dominant gene in jaguars as well. So if you were to have a black partner in your breeding pair, typically the black colour is what you see coming through on any young. So with Neron and Kira, Neron was black, Kira's golden, and they had a black cub. For us, as long as that cub was happy and healthy, we really would not have minded what colour she was at all. But it's still really nice to know that both colours can survive out there in the wild. But it's also really nice for people who've watched the documentary can come and see how she's getting on now, because she's doing really, really well.
Gorgeous.
Aren't you, madam?
So it isn't like a genetic mutation like the lions.
It's not. So with them, it's a recessive gene and not naturally occurring. With jaguars, this black colour is a dominant gene and is quite naturally occurring as well. So it's something that you will actually be able to find out there, and about 10% of wild jaguars. So because of that, it means that we're able to breed from them because both colours can survive out there in the wild, and because it is that dominant gene and is therefore something that you can find in the wild. You know what's happening, don't you? Right, we won't waste any more of your time, Maya. So which one would you like to go first this time?
You can
Shall I go first again?
Yeah.
You're left-handed,
I'm
aren't
left-handed,
you? Yes. Double check that. So photos, if you want to go on that side, just mind out for the stones, they can get a little bit slippery. So I'll grab you a glove again.
Receiving.
I know, she's waiting for her food to come to her.
Could you pick the ranger up about 1:30, please? Will do, thank you. Phoebe received.
Hi, madam.
I'm free, when can I be
Okay, so if you want to hold your hand up flat like that for us, put it in some, make a fist around. Perfect, keep your hand up position for us. Turn your body sideways, your back towards me again. Walk your body to where my arm is here. Come a little bit closer for us. And then turn your hand like that. And when you're ready, pass it on through to her. Yeah, she's a good girl, so you'll be fine. Good girl. Little step back for us. Wonderful. Wow. You see that biting pressure coming into full effect there? Good girl.
Aren't you?
I'll take your glove off you. And then we can do a swap.
She's very gentle again.
She's a good girl. She knows what she's doing.
Very gentle.
So we'll do a swap again then. So for photos, if you want to stand on that side, And I'll grab, if you want to come stand on the tarmac with me, and I'll grab you a glove. Both come on the tarmac. There we go. Hello, Mustang. What are you doing? What are you doing? Hello. Okay, so if you want to hold your hand out flat like that for us, hold it with your thumb, make a fist around. Perfect. Keep your hand like that for us. Turn your body sideways again, see your backs towards me, and walk your body to where my arm is. A little bit closer. Turn your hand like that, and when you're ready, pass it on through to her.
Wow.
Wow.
She's beautiful, isn't she?
Good girl.
You just feel the pressure,
Yeah,
like.
you can. Yes.
Well done.
Got a very strong bite on her there. Good girl. They're nice.
Rolling away. Success.
Yes. Very, very happy with that, aren't you, madam? Wonderful. There.
Bye.
We're not interesting, obviously, because we haven't got food anymore. There you go, having a nice little drink. Good girl.
Lovely.
There you go, you just hand-fed a jaguar.
Wow.
Or intimidating, I think, but no, she's a very, very good girl still. So if you want to go back to the gate.
And off she goes.
Right. We'll head back up this way. We'll get you guys into the conservatory for your lunch. Oh, yeah. Is it that time of It is indeed. It's the end of our tour, so it's
10 to 1. I can't believe it's 10 to 1.
So, when you guys leave, basically, feel free to say goodbye to Maya if you want to, and feel free to use facilities if you'd like to.
Okay.
We just ask you don't wander site by yourself, essentially.
No,
Yeah.
that's fine.
When you guys are then ready to go, this building out of here,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
just an exit on the side of it.
We will.
Feel free to browse through there. That's also
Thank
the exit
you.
out into the car park as well. But I'll take you
Wonderful.
through the conservatory for your lunch.
Thank you.
It's really been nice taking you guys around. I really
Yeah,
hope
it's
you've
nice to
enjoyed
meet
your
you.
time with us.
This is where we come for breakfast after Yeah, feeding day. Smelling yet. Not done the trick. Jesus. He is wonderful. I might come up here in a minute, you never know. We sat down and had our lunch and we had the red Annie's come over. Little bird, isn't it? Ugh, that's disgusting. Oh, sorry, the video.